You know where the wild things are, but do you know where they came from? In this video, you will learn about the creator of those wild things, Maurice Sendak, an American illustrator and author who captured the imagination of children around the world and inspired many artists with his heartfelt stories and a beautiful art style. You are watching The Artist Afterlife. Maurice Bernard Sendak was born during the Great Depression on June 10, 1928 in Brooklyn, New York, to the Polish-Jewish immigrant couple Sadie and Philip Sendak. Often described as the terrible situation, Sendak's childhood was anything but shiny and happy. Being the youngest of 3 siblings after his brother Jack and sister Natalie, he experienced the hardships of childhood sickness, constantly feared his mother and father, and learned about death and suffering much too young, as many of his extended family died during the Holocaust. His health problems as a child pretty much kept him confined to a bed. He was so afraid of death as a child that he would dress in a white suit made by his grandmother and would sit out on the front stoop of his home to fool the angel of death into thinking he had already been taken. It was during this time in his life when he discovered his creativity and imagination. He fell in love with books and art and would often draw to pass the time in bed. With the 1940 release of Disney's Fantasia, young Sendak came to the realization that he wanted to become an illustrator. This set him on a path that he would follow his whole life. One of his first professional commissions was for FAO Schwarz in New York, creating window displays. He finally became a published artist when his illustration work was featured in 1947 with a textbook titled Atomics for the Millions. He made books with his brother Jack, who also went into publishing, and illustrated for other authors as well, before finally creating his own works when he published Kenny's Window in 1956. Then Sendak hit it big when he received international recognition when he published Where the Wild Things Are in 1963 for Harper & Row Publishing. The story was about a young boy named Max, who raged against his mother when he sent to bed without supper. At the time, the themes and visuals contained in the story were somewhat controversial, as it was unheard of at the time to write about family dysfunction, as well as portraying monsters and other frightening motifs in children's literature with such a dark and scary tone for the time period. Later, his 1970 book In the Night Kitchen was often subjected to censorship and sharp criticism for its depiction of a nude boy, being challenged in several American states. Before those successful yet hotly debated books, Sendak was best known for illustrating the Little Bear series of books by Elsie Homeland Minerick, which had a vastly more gentle appeal. Throughout his long and acclaimed career, Sendak produced over 50 books, and he didn't just stick to children's literature. In 1965, he worked with songwriter and composer Carole King for the musical Really Rosie, which was based on his earlier works Chicken Soup with Rice, Pierre, One Was Johnny, Alligators All Around, and The Sign on Rosie's Door. He designed the sets and costumes for the production, which opened the door to more stage productions. This collaboration with King moved into television with the production of Really Rosie the Animated Short, which was broadcast that very same year. He also got involved in the early days of Sesame Street when he worked with Jim Henson to make animated content for that series, as well as serving on the National Board of Advisors for the Children's Television Workshop. Then, from a Christmas special on PBS to the stage version of Where the Wild Things Are, he continued successfully onward with an impressive list of stage and TV productions through the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, including a 2-season run of the animated series 7 Little Monsters for PBS. In 2009, he then made the leap to the silver screen with a film adaptation of Where the Wild Things Are by director Spike Jonze. Sendak's influences came from many painters, musicians, and authors, with his first influence being his own father, who used to tell him over-embellished stories from the Torah. Sendak held on to those tales as he later discovered Mickey Mouse, a character that was created in the same year as Sendak's birth. He had been quoted as saying, "My gods are Herman Melville, Emily Dickinson, and Mozart. I believe in them with all of my heart." He explained that the works of Dickinson and Mozart were especially potent things in his life that he felt were essential to his very being. He also credited Ursula Nordstrom, the 33-year director of Harper's Department of Books for Boys and Girls, as an inspiration for him as well. Sendak died on May 8, 2012, at the age of 83, in Danbury, Connecticut from complications rising from a stroke, just a month shy of his 84th birthday, and a mere 5 years to the month after the death of his partner of 50 years, Eugene Glenn. The news of his passing rang around the world, bringing out authors and writers, artists and creatives across all media to share their love for Sendak and his work. The New York Times obituary called Sendak the most important children's book artist of the 20th century. Bumblearty was the last book he published in 2011 before his death the following year, and then a picture book called My Brother's Book was published after his death. This is the first episode of The Artist Afterlife. If you enjoyed this video and you found it informative, feel free to give it a like and a subscribe. Until next time.